Can you hear my voice? Kipra, can you hear me? Ali, can you hear me?
Good morning, Santosh sir.
Good morning.
Sir, you are audible, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir. You're audible, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Just check with Dr. Vatsa's office.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Sir, Krishnavatsa sir is joining in few minutes. Can we start the program?
नहीं उनको आने दे 2 मिनट just announce कर दो कि we have to wait just 2 minutes and other participants are also joining.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Just give 2 minutes so that other participants should not be waiting ना all the way. ठीक है.
Yes, sir. Sir, Krishnavatsa sir has joined. Sir, Krishnavatsa sir has joined. Santosh sir.
So we may start now. Joined.
Yes, sir. So a very good morning to all the respected dignitaries, esteemed panelists, participants. On behalf of NIDM, I extend you all a very warm welcome to this webinar on funding in disaster risk reduction, 15th Finance Commission and guidelines, relief, mitigation and recovery. After the completion of this program, the participants will be able to list down the new recommendations of 15th Finance Commission, describe various possible financing tools for disaster risk reduction, and outline insurance as a beneficial tool in reducing the risk of disaster in various regions of India. With this, I take this opportunity to introduce the patron of this webinar, Shri Taj Hassan, IPS, Executive Director, NIDM. I would also like to welcome and introduce Krishna Vatsa sir, Shri Krishna Vatsa sir, member NDMA, and the convener of this webinar, Professor Santosh Kumar, faculty and head, Governance and Inclusive, DRR, NIDM. Over to you, sir.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Very good morning to all of you and especially our chief guest, Dr. Krishna Vatsa. As you know, that Dr. Vatsa is the chief architect of this 15th Finance Commission, especially when it comes to the disaster management section. So that itself is a big thing that today India see the watershed in the disaster management process. And in the disaster management, we have been discussing it for long that we should have a ex ante funding for disaster risk mitigation, which was already there in the Act since 2005, but never been the part of the financial procedure. But now, with great efforts, we have now in place a Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, National Disaster Authority, and all experts were consulted, and they brought this important inclusion in the 15th Finance Commission for disaster management. The challenge is this that okay, that we have that many things in place, but are we actually utilizing? How we are going to utilize? If you see that the recommendations of Finance Commission, that National Disaster Risk Mitigation Fund, there's a broader this, and in this we have 11 subsections, and that's 11 subsections is talking about that National Disaster Response Fund, National Disaster Mitigation Fund, we have Response and Relief Fund, Recovery and Reconstruction Fund, Preparedness and Capacity Building. Then we have this under the Disaster Mitigation Fund, We have for 12 drought-prone states allocation. Then we have a seismic and landslide risk mitigations provision. We also have the provision of that reducing risk of urban flooding. And then special mitigation projects, we have a special mention. Other than that, we also two provisions we have made in the DRF, that is a resettlement displaced for the displaced people and expansion of modernization of fire services. So what we are visualizing here, we are visualizing that this time that is a sea change, as a watershed. And most of the set and NDMA has already made a guidelines for how actually capitalize, and whatever the guidelines ready so far that we will hear from Dr. Vatsa itself, that what kind of a guidelines that the state should be utilizing, how that should be utilizing, how that fund will be captured for the ex ante and ex post. It's very, very interesting discourse that we are talking about disaster management. So now when we talk about disaster management financing and financing risk mitigation and management, then we have to see that earlier we used to say that we do not have financial instruments. So how that financial instruments can be brought in the purview of that much more needed disaster management approach. So and that after that deliberation we have, and where then we are seeing this how that fund should be utilized. So NIDM and NDMA thought it together, and we thought that let's have this kind of a engagement, and that engagement will go with the that understanding of the risk, understanding of the this what we say as a kind of a whole of the approach that we can take the disaster management discourse further. So I'm really glad that more than 100 participants have joined so far from different state governments. We had sent invitation to all the SDMAs, Secretary Disaster Management, and also that district disaster authorities to understand. Although that we will be coming up series of webinar, we had an initial discussion with the Ministry of Home Affairs and also with a member, Dr. Vatsa. So we are starting this workshop as the first one of the series, and but I would request all of you to also please join the next series where we have a elaborate kind of a discussion. Also, that opportunity we will have. So I will not take much time at this juncture. Mr. Taj Hassan would have been there, but he has an injury, so he had got some doctor to be consulted. So he is not here. He is on leave. So he has conveyed his best wishes to all of us and to have a wonderful understanding and discussion on this webinar. So this, I would request all the participants, whatever Dr. Vatsa is saying, please listen to it very carefully. And this particular webinar is basically made on the question answer basis. That what are your kind of on the guidelines? What are your thinking? What are your confusion? What are your clarifications? This is the best opportunity that we are having Dr. Vatsa with us, and he would be actually taking your questions. And on an NIDM side, if anything would come, that we will be definitely taking it up. So with this, I request Dr. Vatsa, you know Dr. Vatsa already that he has a very, very long experience, both as a relief commissioner, also as a district magistrate in the government of Maharashtra. He has also worked as a regional advisor, then advisor in the New York office of UNDP, and long spending on the, as a, we say that many bureaucrats are getting converted into disaster, but he's coming as a kind of a professional approach he has taken. So he did his PhD also on disaster management from George Washington University, and then he pursued all his applied his all his administrative skills into understanding the subject. So I'm really grateful that today, as a member of National Disaster Authority, he has contributed in the formation of this particular recommendations where we are going to discuss, and he is there right there. So I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Vatsa, and I would request you to kindly give your deliberations. Uh, uh, Thank you, Dr. Vats. You are invited to go for the deliberations, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind introduction. Thank you for being here, for inviting me to this important webinar. These discussions are important because we are in the initial stage of making these funds operational. And at this stage, it needs to be discussed more often. It needs to be discussed in much greater detail. We are actually laying down the foundation for a new financial system for disaster risk reduction in the country. So such initiatives, such discussions and deliberations are very, very useful. Thank you very much. As you know, and just to recap and give a brief background, the 15th Finance Commission has brought a radical change in the way disaster risk financing is practiced in the country. Earlier, we had just one window, which was available only for relief and response. There was no other window available for any other aspect of disaster management, be it preparedness, be it recovery and reconstruction, be it mitigation. Despite the fact that we had a legal provision for National Disaster Mitigation Fund and State Disaster Mitigation Fund and District Disaster Mitigation Fund, we could not operationalize this fund for various reasons. So after a long struggle, long deliberations, the act was passed in 2005. It was in 2021 that we are seeing the National and State Disaster Mitigation Fund being set up. And also within the National Disaster Response Fund and State Disaster Response Fund, we have now 3 windows, 40% for the relief and response, 30% for recovery and reconstruction, and 10% for preparedness and capacity building. So as we see, all the functions of disaster management are now clearly reflected in the structure of disaster risk financing. So no disaster management authority at the state level can complain that they don't have the access to resources for these functions. They need to plan and they need to utilize these resources as judiciously as they can. However, these funds, we must acknowledge that these funds have just been set up. We really have to lay down the guidelines. We have to lay down the operational details of how these funds would function. It's taking little time, but I just want to assure that all these stakeholders at the national level, be it MHA or the NDMA and the NIDM, all of us working together to see that these funding windows have a strong foundation, both operationally as well as technically. I would like to mention here that these funding windows are tagged to different kind of functions, relief and response, recovery and reconstruction, and preparedness and mitigation. Now, then even at the national level, at the level of the ministries, at the level of an agency like NDMA also, there is not often a very clear understanding of where one function ends and the other begins. There is a considerable overlap. There is a considerable linkages among these different functions. So as a result, the the guidelines, the framing of the guidelines and the finalization of the guidelines have taken little more time than expected. We also in the last 2 years, we also have gone through this phase of COVID-19, which also affected the finalization of these guidelines. However, I think there is a lot of deliberation, a lot of thinking, and I think we are now about to finalize all the guidelines. So I hope that another 1 or 2 months, we will have issued all the guidelines, both the operational part as well as the technical part. At some point, when we prepared the first draft of the guidelines in 2020, a decision was taken that each guideline would be divided into 2 parts, the operational guidelines and the technical guidelines. The operational guidelines have been issued. The technical guidelines are also under finalization. Very soon, we will be issuing the technical guidelines for mitigation, recovery, and reconstruction. We are working on it right now. I think in a month's time, we will also be issuing the recovery and reconstruction guidelines. So I know that some of the states have been asking for it, and it is a little bit delayed, but it is very much in the pipeline. And I assure you that we are continuously working at it, and we will soon be sharing the technical aspects of these guidelines with you. Now, what is also a very important is that to note is that along with the guideline, along with these different funding windows, the total amount allocated to the states has also been increased by more than 100%. So in the 14th Finance Commission, the total allocation to the states was about 62,000 crores. Now, at present, it is close to 160,000 crores, or little, just about 160,000 crores, or little less than 160,000 crores. So it is definitely more than 100% increase. So today we are in a situation that all the states have adequate resources, and they need to plan. When we have such allocation, what is important is that we also demonstrate a strong sense of accountability, that all the funds that have been earmarked for different purposes are spent for the purpose for which they have been planned. So the operational part, operational guidelines actually lay down the accountability standards, how we should demonstrate maximum accountability, how we should develop proposals, how the proposals need to be reviewed technically, how they need to be approved, and how they need to be implemented. So what is very important is that when the state governments and we also at the national level spend these resources, we align them with the purpose for which these funds have been constituted. We should not try to, give our own interpretation. We should not try to misallocate the resources. We should not try to take shortcuts in terms of approvals. We need to be rigorous in terms of reviewing projects and scrutinizing the technical aspects of the project. All this requires that we have sufficient capacity at the state level. And right now, that is the biggest challenge. And we are talking to on every occasion that we have talked to the states, we have impressed upon them the need for capacity building within the SDMA. It also requires that we go back to the provisions of the Disaster Management Act 2005 and we constitute the State Disaster Management Authority as it is laid down in the Act. At present, what we see is that the state governments are actually operating dual structure. They have the departments and they have also constituted the SDMAs. Most of the time, these SDMAs are very nominal in terms of their functioning, 1 or 2 people, and that's how these SDMAs exist. I think this needs to change. The department and the SDMAs need to come together, and we need to have all the 4 functions reflected in the composition of the SDMAs. So every SDMA should have a mitigation division. Every SDMA should have response and relief, recovery and reconstruction, and preparedness and capacity building teams working within them. So we will, at the NDMA level, we will certainly like to take an initiative for setting up, for strengthening the SDMAs. Very soon we will be working on these aspects, but it is important the SDMA also take initiative and set up these the SDMA afresh and bring more capacity, make the SDMAs more professional. So this is the key word. This is the key word. Now that we have the resources available, the real challenge is that we should make SDMAs more professional. We should bring more professional and technical resources to the SDMAs. And it means that people who are formally trained in disaster management should join the SDMAs and support the SDMAs towards different functions. So developing capacities, bringing more professional resources, and setting up SDMAs as they are envisaged in the Act are among the most important priorities today, which we need to address. What is also important is to look at the district level. Very, very important. Right now, we have the district disaster management authorities, as they function. They are right now, they have the structure of a committee. They don't have many people supporting the functioning of the DDMAs. So it's important that we also bring more capacity to the DDMA. We really bring more professional resources to the DDMA. And it's important that the DDMA has a well thought out structure, certain facilities, so that they can implement the programs as planned by the SDMA. Let's keep it in mind that it is the DDMAs that would be implementing most of the programs. So unless we strengthen the DDMAs, we will really not be successful in implementing the recommendations of the Finance Commission. We will not be able to do justice to all 4 functions as supported through these funding windows. We would like to hear more about capacity building of the DDMAs. They are the cutting edge, and how should we strengthen the districts? But at the same time, we also do not spend a lot on the staff salaries. This is a challenge. We have about 750 districts. What would be these districts are of size? They have different they have again very varying populations. So and they have varying hazard profiles. So not that one standard structure can be thought of for all the districts. We need to think of various models for the districts. So what are those various models? And we would like to hear more from the field about how best the districts should be supported. One important thing that I would like to bring to your attention is that with this set of recommendations, we have the National Disaster Management Fund, Risk Management Fund, and State Disaster Risk Management Fund. All of them are activated now. But we are yet to activate the district level funds. That's also part of the act. And at some point, the district level disaster management fund, district disaster mitigation fund, they also need to be activated. So I think this is a work in progress as we devolve more and more resources. I'm sure it's a matter of time before the disaster management fund at the district levels also get activated. What is, there are a few other things which are included in the, Santosh ji, how much time I have?
You have time because only you and me are discussing this issue.
Okay. So I will speak for another 10 minutes or so. Is it okay?
Take it easy. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So there are a few other things that I would like to bring to your notice. One is that the first time the Finance Commission has made some earmarked allocations. And these earmarked allocations actually demonstrate the national priority, that we should undertake projects for earthquakes at the national level, and the most earthquake prone states need to be helped. Similarly, we should also implement a program for landslide mitigation, and a landslide is becoming a serious problem across the country. People are losing their lives, their properties due to frequent landslides. We also have a serious problem of urban floods. All the cities are getting affected. We have a long-standing problem of coastal and river erosion. Similarly, drought is a serious problem across many states. This year also, as we see, there are several states which are deficient seriously deficient in rain and facing drought-like situation. So the Finance Commission has taken note of all these important national challenges, the hazard scale that exists today in the country, and has made earmarked allocations. And it has asked the NDMA and MHA to take lead on these issues and develop national programs and implement them. So following these recommendations, we have started working on the earthquake and landslides and urban floods and erosion, all these issues, and there is also an allocation for expansion and modernization of fire services. So the Finance Commission has made an allocation of 5,000 crores just for the expansion and modernization of fire services. Very, very important, very critical emergency management service in the country. Now, we within the NDMA, along with the MHA, are working on all these earmarked projects. We have developed the national project on the earthquake. We have circulated it among the states. We are planning a workshop with all the participating states on the issue of this national program. We have taken a similar initiative for the landslides. A national program is in development, and again we are going to invite all the states to discuss this program. We are also going to call all the important cities for which the allocations have been made for urban flood management. We have just developed the policy for the mitigation and rehabilitation of river and coastal erosion. We will be circulating this policy among all the states very, very soon. So all these earmarked programs require a very active and long-term participation of the states. It will bring a focused attention to a particular hazard, and it will also help the states develop capacity in these hazards. So I think we and the national level, NDMA and MHA, we all need to work together on these earmarked allocations. The next 3-4 years are going to be very intensive, and we will first time we will be having such large mitigation projects being implemented across the country. So this is all very, very encouraging, very promising. I don't underestimate the challenges, when you develop such a program, when you start implementing a program on this scale, there will be several challenges. But no, we need to rise to the challenge. We need to work together, and we need to address all the aspects of the hazard, be it early warning, be it mitigation, be it preparedness, and be it the response capacity. Along with this, the Finance Commission has also emphasized that this time has come to look at the feasibility of various insurance mechanisms. And this is very, very important. As the countries grow, they have increased insurance coverage at the household level, at the community level. So the Finance Commission has made a few recommendations. Based on those recommendations, we are undertaking larger scale studies on insurance. In addition, there are many other stakeholders which are interested in pursuing insurance, and NDMA is partnering with them. I think given the stage of development that we are at, it is possible that we can make certain insurance solutions work. Not all the insurance solutions are feasible, but certain insurance solutions could definitely be tried and introduced, and we can think of making them successful. But again, it would require the participation and cooperation of all these states. So look at the entire situation a little more comprehensively. One, we have set up these funds. We have the resources now available for all the important functions. We need to organize ourselves. We need to make ourselves more professional to respond to these opportunities. We need to energize the district level setup and give them more support so that they can really implement many more programs than what we have done so far. All this requires that we graduate from our earlier approach where we would largely focus on relief. But here we are, through this new system, we are looking at a more broad-based disaster management system. The earmarked allocations and the national programs being developed on the strength of these earmarked allocations would also bring a new culture of hazard mitigation in the country. In times to come, I will see more and more national programs, more and more state level programs, specifically targeting individual hazards. We will also see a greater push for database of disasters, database of the projects, the database of the communities which have benefited from these interventions. And we would see that more and more more and more digital footprint of all these interventions. So all the states, all the districts, and the national level working together with um, many more portals, many more databases, and a lot more interaction than that has been the case so far. So we are on the verge of a new digital culture which will spread to all the aspects of disaster management. When we are doing all this, it's important that we have the requisite capacity building support. That capacity building support should come from the NIDM. That capacity building support should come from the State Institute of Disaster Management. Many states are doing that. Many states are in the process of setting up such institutions. Many states will set it up within their ATIs, but such a capacity building setup is very, very important. Without this kind of external, this kind of a knowledge support, without this kind of resource center, we will not really be very successful. The need of the hour is more professional support, more technical support, very collaborative working together at the national and state and district levels, and developing a community of practice across the country. So this is where we are. We are working continuously, but we would like to have your suggestions, and we would like to work in a way that disaster management setup in India is on much stronger footing, more so than as we are in the midst of experiencing serious impacts of climate change. We are looking at increased incidence of climate. The patterns of hazards are changing. It's important that we take advantage of these new opportunities that have been offered by the Finance Commission and upgrade our institutions, upgrade our system to a new level. Thank you very much. This is in short what I would like to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vatsa. So you have given a glimpse that how that the new financial mechanism, which has been brought up by the 15th Finance Commission, and that divided into two very clear distinction. It has been made as a National Disaster Risk Mitigation Fund, RDRMF, NDRMF. The second is this SDRMF. So SDRMF, when large number of states are participating in this program, and definitely I will open for the question answer for the participants. I'll just that the points which you have highlighted, which is very, very important point. One, that SDMA is to be strengthened. The institutions which have to actually take this forward, the institutions are not in a capacity probably today to take on this kind of a massive investment. When we talk about SDRMF, which is almost equivalent to 1,60,000 crores of rupees.
Sir, you are on mute. Sir, you are on mute.
Can't hear you, Professor. Professor, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
There was some network error. He's joining again.
चलेगा वैसा कुछ नहीं है वैसे तो जाता तो पांडे सर की तरफ से ही है ना कोई क्लियर जो चाहिए था ना
Sorry,
ग्रीन
Yes,
चाहिए
sir.
था ना
Yes,
power
sir.
went
मतलब
up.
ऊपर
So
के लिए चाहिए था वो नीचे पांडे जी बिजी
I
थे
would
उनको भी
request
बात
participants to
करेगा
kindly please
फिर
keep their
उसके बाद
mic
वो
on the
ग्रीन शीट
mute.
की कॉपी और ये जो ओरिजिनल
Yeah, Shipra, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was asking Dr. Vatsa before I leave it open for the discussion on for the house. The majority of the allocations which are with the SDRMF, which is almost equal to 1,60,153 crores, which has been which is subsequently divided into two SDRF and SDRMF. So if you separate it out 20% of the SDRMF, which is 32,000 crores for the state allocation, huge amount of money is being allocated for capacity building and also long-term recovery and reconstruction, other than the response and relief. So the question is that the point which you are highlighting, that SDMA should be strengthened and SDMA has to take this forward. So what is the funding arrangement so far has been made for the fund allocation routing from Government of India to the state government, so that SDMAs can actually take that money with them and start working, or it will go through the budgetary allocation to the state, and from state to it will go to the SDMF. So who will control this money of which is related to mitigation fund and also related to the capacity building and reconstruction fund? This is one. The number two question, like you said also about that we have a lot of money for the long-term recovery and reconstruction. As we are discussing Assam also currently, that for example, I'm putting up that Assam is allocated with, if I do the percentage, almost 205 crores of rupees for the kind of a recovery. So how that money will roll down if the state government is willing to take on. So on these 2 points, first, I would like to have your deliberations. One, that how that money will go from NDMA or to the SDMA or the state institution. And then further that, especially those funds, recovery, reconstruction, and also that capacity building fund, other than the relief fund. The relief fund always goes to the state government directly to the relief commissioner. So is there any change in the guidelines?
There is no change in the disbursement mechanism. The disbursement mechanism remains the same. The finance ministry and the MHA together, they are releasing the money to the states. All the states need to budget and get the money in their budget. I think there are some changes in the budget heads that you would see in the Finance Commission recommendations. But so far as the disbursement procedures and disbursement mechanisms are concerned, there is absolutely no change. All of them have to constitute the SDMF. And they have been, I think all the states have been issued the letters. They must constitute this. So they would constitute it and they will receive the money as they would always receive. What is important is that whatever expenditure that they incur, that should be reported. So there is a NDM, MIS, and all the states need to report on their expenditures. But see, what is important here is this, that there is, with the kind of volume of resources and the kind of spending that is expected, the Finance Commission has recommended that a special dispensation be set up to monitor the planning and expenditure of all the resources. And that is again a very, very important recommendation. We need to work on that recommendation. Maybe in the in coming months, we will start working on that. At present, there is no change in the disbursement
mechanism.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the moment you are saying that state government should constitute, what does it mean? Constitute means
that
they have to put
they
their
should-
states here.
Yeah, they should put their state. They should constitute a fund which will be called a state disaster mitigation fund. There will be a budget. There is a budget head for that particular fund. They need to contribute their own share, which is 25% for a special category of states, which is 10%. So this is what we mean when we say that when we ask to constitute these funds. What is important here is this, and it is very much important for the states. Sometimes the states just allocate these resources only in the name. We will see that the money is there, but often this money is used for it is reflected in the budget, but actually there is no money available. So that is why it's important to have the budget heads specifically constituted and some kind of a ring fencing of these allocations are necessary. So these are some of the issues that need to be taken up. And if we set up a special office for monitoring of all the expenditures, then I think it would be possible to see that all states have these funds really allocated, allocated on the ground, and they can spend this money also on the intended purposes. So this is a reform that the Finance Commission has recommended and that we need to act upon. So far as Assam is concerned, the second question, they have the allocation. So based on the assessment, they can develop a recovery program and they can use the resources. Now, what is important is what kind of a recovery program that they develop. And this recovery program will not be a 1-year program. It will be 2 years program or 3-year program. So depending upon the time frame, they can use the allocation for subsequent years as well. And at the same time, they can ask for resources from the NDRF as well. So they can, bring together resources from multiple sources and they can develop the recovery program. Thank you. Hello? Hello? Santoshi, can you hear it? Hello?
Sir, कहाँ
You are
गायब
on
हो गए?
mute.
सर कहाँ गायब हो गए? सर कहाँ गायब हो गए?
Okay. Who is the host? Hello?
Thank you so much, sir.
If there are other questions, please let me know.
Sorry, I went offline. Power got cut. Any question at this moment from the state government? Any district they wish to have this question? Shipra, just coordinate any question. Otherwise, I will ask question.
So till now, we don't have any question.
Okay, so ask a participant to kindly put that question into.
If any of you have any question, you can ask in the chat box or in the Q&A section, and our panelist will be answering to that.
Okay, so let me ask another question. Like the state government has been asked to set up, as you said, that to set up a state institute of disaster management for taking this capacity building, and that too. So, what are the modalities which the guidelines which has come up for the state governments for setting up the state institute of disaster management?
One of this, it can very well be set up through the capacity building fund. So, of course, the salaries cannot be met through the capacity building fund. Similarly, the construction may not be allowed, but there are many other things that could be supported through the capacity building fund. So,
HR support will not come from here.
Salaries will not. The salaries will not come from this kind of funds, but other kinds of support can definitely be.
Like suppose any of the state government, the State Institute of Disaster Management, they wish to undertake some consultancy or some research work. Will they be able to use this fund under the capacity building for the activities?
Yes, yes. So they can run training programs. They can hire consultants. They can also get a few visiting faculty also to undertake training programs. They can buy the equipment for the purpose of training. So those are the things that they can definitely do through this capacity preparedness and capacity building.
Sarath, are you online from Assam?
Sir, I'm Sarath from Tripura, sir.
Oh, sorry, Tripura. Yes, yes, Tripura. Do you want some clarification on these three issues so far? I will go for another segment a little later on three things. One, that what is the status in Tripura? Have they set up that their own share, as Dr. Vatsa was telling, to access that fund? We need to have the mitigation fund setting up, that state share should come. And in the state of Tripura, we have like say 6.40 crore, isn't it? Is that state share? So what is the status in Tripura? Or if you have any specific question also, you can ask.
Namaskar. Good afternoon to all, sir. Sir, for Tripura, the state government has already constituted the state mitigation fund, before this 15th Finance Commission, sir. During 2016, the state government had already constituted this state disaster mitigation fund with the token money of 1 crore rupees per year. And the state
voice is breaking.
Sir, do you hear me, sir, now?
Hello, yeah, sir? I can hear you very clearly.
Sir, regarding this Tripura state, sir, we have our own state disaster mitigation fund before the 15th Finance Commission recommendation, sir. That was 1 crore per year for mitigation activities, and we have been using those funds. And after, sir, 15th Finance Commission recommendation, as per the operational guidelines of MHA, the state government has already constituted the head of account for this administration of this mitigation fund. And we have already received the state share from the Government of India. And as per the Government of India instruction, we have already segregated the fund for this mitigation activities. And now we have received some projects from the different departments and also the districts. And as per this guidelines, operational guidelines, we have already constituted this appraisal committee for both for this capacity building, preparedness capacity building, as well as the mitigation fund. And for the preparedness and capacity building funding, we had the first meeting of the appraisal committee, wherein the perspective plan for the state, starting from the 21-22 to 25-26 state, were discussed, as well as the annual action plan for 21-22 and 22-23 also discussed, and also there are so many recommendations also come up. Then we are again further modifying the plan, and after this modification, again discussion of this appraisal committee, it will be recommended for SEC approval, sir. Sir, one question is that though technical guidelines from NDM we have not received, should we go ahead? Yes.
You will receive them very soon. You know,
Okay.
it's just it is being finalized as we speak. You know, it has been finalized at the level of NDMA. We need to have some more discussion with the MHA, and we will be issuing them very soon.
Sir, should we wait for this issuance of this
No,
guidance?
please go ahead. Please go ahead and start working on this.
Okay, sir.
Because you already have some guidelines. Indications are also available in the draft guidelines.
Right.
Draft guidelines have already been circulated. The final guidelines are being issued. We also have certain guidelines mentioned in the Finance Commission recommendations itself.
Sir.
So,
sir, one more clarification, sir. Regarding the operational guidelines of both mitigation and preparedness capacity building, in the mitigation fund guidelines, it clearly mentioned there is no salary head. But for the consultancy services, that what you said, then that also can be paid out of this fund.
yes.
For the preparedness and capacity building head guidelines, it's no here mentioned that a consultancy fees to be paid. But for, when we prepared our perspective plan and also this annual action plan, then we thought there also should be a component like, what Professor Santosh Kumar sir said, ki actually consultancy fees, and we need to pay for this, manpower HR support for doing certain small projects and all. Sir, if it is what you said.
So these are the things we know. We have just framed the guidelines. There would be some deficiencies here and there. Please send a reference to us. Please send a reference to the MHA. We will take it up. As I say, these guidelines are being developed for the first time. They will not be perfect guidelines. There will be some mistakes. There will be some deficiencies, which we will correct. We will improve as we have more experience of the functioning of this.
Sir, last clarification, sir, we are very much require the guidelines for insurance, sir. Sir, kindly if this can be shared, sir, it will be grateful for us.
Which one?
Insurance, sir, disaster risk
Insurance,
transfer.
yeah. Insurance, again, we are dealing with certain aspects of insurance. So we will involve you in some of those initiatives. Please join us. Please work with us. And it's important that states and NDMA work together on different aspects. So all I can say right now is that on different aspects of insurance, please join us. We will invite you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarath. Any other participants from any state? Like, do we have any person from Andhra Pradesh here?
Sir, we have a few questions in the chat box.
Okay, please read it out.
Yes, sir. Sir, it is what is the procedure for claiming mitigation fund allocated under earmarked schemes like flood mitigation?
Urban floods, there is a earmarking for floods. The 7 cities have got 100 crores. 4 cities have 100 crores. 3 cities have got 100 crores, and 4 cities have got 50 crores annually. That's the kind of allocation that has been made. Now we are inviting all these 7 cities. These 7 cities are Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, and Pune. All of them, we are inviting them for a one-day workshop. We will introduce the entire proposal, and we will seek proposals we will ask them to develop proposals. So it's not that, each city has its own flood mitigation solutions. So it's not that there is one flood mitigation program. So there are 7 cities. So there would be these different urban flood mitigation program for each of these 7 cities. And we would like to expand it to many more cities later. So they have to develop the program as per their needs, and we will work together with each of the cities. We will also try to provide technical assistance for this purpose. So this is how we plan to approach it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vats. Shipra, read another question.
So the next question is that how exactly is the SDMF routed through the investment in RBI? Is it done through the finance department?
Finance department has to issue a notification constituting the SDMF. The modalities are given in the Finance Commission report, and it has to follow those modalities and constitute the SDMF. That's how it is done. Thank you.
So may I continue with that question? I'm from Meghalaya.
Okay. Please go ahead.
So the question actually is, do we have to go through the finance department for them to invest the funds through RBI?
You have to go to the finance department, of course. No, it is you have to set this fund in with the concurrence of the finance department. They will be.
Yes, sir. But will they be investing the funds first through RBI? Is that the process?
I really don't know about that RBI part. I don't think you have to do it with the RBI, investment in RBI, but you can check further with the MHA.
Then we'll have to check with MHA, sir, because it is very clear in the guideline.
So in that case, you may have to go, but first thing is to take a decision to set up the SDMF, and for that initiate the measures, seek the concurrence of Finance Ministry, because they have to contribute the state share.
Yes, sir. Sir, may I say something? We have completed all that process, sir. We have made the state contribution. The SDM is already in place. We already have the appraisal committee approved just last week. It's just that matter of whether that funds through finance department has to be invested through RBI or not. That is the only catch that we want to know, so that we can move forward, sir. That's the
I plead my ignorance. I won't be able to give you the best answer. Maybe you ask the MHA. They would be able to give you a reply on this issue.
Okay.
But I have noted it down from Meghalaya.
Yes, sir.
If I get the answer, I will get back to you through email or something also.
That will be very good, sir.
We'll find the answer and we will let you know.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Any other state would like to ask?
There is another question.
Yeah, please.
Usually when the guidelines of SDRF comes with that, the norms and the items of relief assistance will also be attached to it. But now when the guidelines of SDRMF 2021 to 26 came with that, there was no norms and items. We are now following the norms of 2015 and 20. My question is that whether new forms will come soon or till 26, we have to follow the 2015-20 norms.
So it's like this, that the norms that were developed in 2015, they pertain to relief only. Now, those norms are being divided into 2 parts. One would relate to the relief. The other would relate to the recovery and reconstruction. The draft norms for recovery and reconstruction guidelines were circulated among the states. We have received comments from several states. We are finalizing it right now, actually, and very soon we will be sharing the draft norms for recovery and reconstruction. I think the MHA is also working on updating the norms for response and relief as well. So it's both the set of norms should be shared with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Another question?
So there is last question that can early warning system project for disaster management be taken under SDMF?
Generally, the early warning is part of preparedness. So it should be done through the preparedness window. You know, early warning is generally not included in the mitigation. So it is the preparedness and capacity building window that should support early warning systems.
So meaning thereby, Dr. Vatsa, that in the NDRMF, we have 11 windows. So all the state government will have 11 windows, not the consolidated one
Not,
ND.
where is 11 windows? 4 windows.
4 windows in the SDRMF, but in NDRMF is what we are saying. NDRF is one window, NDMF is one window, and subsequently NDRF have 5 windows. Like response and relief and recovery and reconstruction.
There are altogether only 4 windows.
So
3 windows in the NDRF.
3 windows in NDRF and 1 is SDRF.
And NDMF. Similarly, 3 windows in SDRF and 1 is SDMF.
And so that financial heads would be needed only for those windows.
Yes.
The rest of the work can be taken under that windows.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I hope the state government must have got the clarification on that.
Very clear.
That where the allocations and then
both the funds SDRF and SDMF, they are called SDRMF.
Right.
Similarly, NDRF and NDMF, they are together called NDRMF.
So the further allocations which are there, that will be the part of this, not the separate subsequent fund. That they can use that.
So 40%, 30%, 10%. That's how the different financial windows are there in the NDRF and SDRF, and 20% for the mitigation.
So if any state government is putting up SDRMF as a kind of window, so under that window, they will receive that capacity building fund also for 10%.
Yes.
So capacity building user would be different and relief would be different. So say that relief is done by the head of the relief commissioner's office.
Yeah.
The capacity building, if you're suggesting that is to be done through that state institution or disaster management.
It is the SDMA that actually is the custodian of all the different financial windows, and they will allocate the resources. They will approve, state executive committee, SDMA, they will decide upon how much money to be given to, for what purpose.
So if I can understand and for the participant to explain that all the money which will flow from here to the state government will give further to the state disaster management authority for all the allocations. Is that clear, or is there?
There is no need for a state government to give. The money goes directly into the fund.
Not to the state budget.
I mean, a state budget, those are some of these things, these are some of the mechanisms, but within the state budget, these funds are clearly reflected.
To the state disaster management.
Yes.
Okay. So if
when the money is released, I think on a 6-monthly basis, they actually go to the respective funds.
Right. So thank you so far for clarifying this. Now,
sir, I have a small query, sir. I am from Manipur, and myself, Mr. K. Chandrasekhar Singh, sir. Regarding this administration of SDRMF fund, what we have practiced in our state is that the fund we receive from the ministry, it goes to our public account, that is 8121, and we have 2 heads of account for SDRF and for SDMF. And when the fund, SDRM fund comes, the 80% goes to SDRF and 20% goes to SDMF. And sir, my request is that whether the three windows that is under SDRF, will there be any requirement to open a new head of account for recovery and reconstruction, preparedness and capacity building, and relief and response?
Just read the Finance Commission report. I think in the last 2-3 paragraphs, I think these things are very clearly mentioned. I think when you are setting up windows, each of them would have different budget heads and subheads.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And three questions are coming on the same topic. One is that what Dr. Vatsa has already clarified, but again, for the benefits of every state, they are writing that if that money will not be spent on the salary or consultant fee, that how we are going to actually execute this opportunity which has been given to the state. This is one. And the second is whether the recovery and reconstruction fund have been used as the first time. So of course, Dr. Vatsai.
What is the question? Say it again, please.
Question is that if there is no provision of utilizing these funds with the salary or the remuneration, how the state government will execute this?
What is important is this, that the state governments also allocate resources. No? This is a salary expenditure. This is a committed expenditure. So you need to think of what a good structure of SDMA would look like. No, you need to have a minimum level of staff, a core staff, and then for additional things, you can always engage the consultants, and for the consultants, there are always resources available. What we are saying, look, a state government will not, make any allocation for salaries or make any allocation for establishment. That would not be a very fair thing to do. The state government, it is a very, very important function of the state government. The state government should recognize that. Say I recently visited Mizoram. I hope someone is there from the Mizoram. And Mizoram has a kind of allocation of, say, close to 400 crores. Now, for spending 400 crores across the 4-5 years, they need to have a minimum capacity. And that capacity needs to be created by the state government. Now, that capacity needs to be augmented by consultants, technical experts. For all that, the funding windows can make the provisions. But the core capacity must be set up by the state government. That is very, very important. And that is a point which I want to impress upon all the state governments. And NDMA also wants to take up a program of capacity building for all the states, because unless we do that, we would not really be successful.
So, Dr. Vatsa, to clarify it further for the other state government, what you have said, that as we know that disaster management is a state subject, and we are saying that state should come forward proactively for actually putting their capacity in place so that the new financial mechanism through Finance Commission or through the support of the NDMA that should roll down in the state. The question is that when the state is putting up their resources, can that also be counted as a part of the state share? Suppose where they are putting 5 resource person.
No. That's these are the funds are these four funds. These 4 funds are distinct entities. They have the guidelines. Let's not try to do that, mix that.
Exactly.
The expenditure on core staff should be looked at separately. Now, otherwise, if you start meddling this, and this is what I've said, accountability is very, very important. Then you will see that these funds are being used for all kinds of purposes, and then there will be very, very serious irregularities.
Right.
That the money is being diverted for this purpose, that purpose. No, we need to be very clear that this money should not be diverted for salaries.
So this is very clear.
That is a temptation we must guard against. State governments must create that core capacity. It is very, very important.
So with
and it's not really very expensive. What we are saying is, see, I would say if you have a budget of 400 crores, maybe you spend 5% through your own budget.
5% is needed.
Yeah, only 5% is needed. So maybe, you make an allocation of 20 crores. Annually, it comes to 4 or 5 crores. With an allocation of 4 or 5 crores every year, you will be able to set up a capable SDMA, and you can always supplement the resources. You can always find resources. There are so many national programs, national initiatives. Even these funding windows allow you to hire consultants. So it's not that, but please don't ask for the salary expenditure, because that would really lead to a very slippery slope.
So this is very, very interesting point which has been brought, that all the money which are being there as a allocation from the 15th Finance Commission window is absolutely for the activities. It's not for the salary. So important is that you can hire consultant, and that is different issue, but that is done honorarium, isn't it? That's what you said.
Yes.
And
honorarium, consultancy fee and all that,
consultancy fee and all that. But if any state, they are putting up that resources, like say setting up the institution or strengthening of the state disaster authorities, if they are bringing faculty, staff and all, that should be over and above of the allocation which has been there as a state share.
Yes.
And that should be the spirit that should be seen as a kind of a support to the support to the state government from the national government. Because the questions were reflecting that.
See what has happened so far, and you will see that it has happened in many cases where we have the central government have provided support for capacity building, salary for 2 years, 3 years. It has happened for professors also, state level. There is a national scheme for supporting professors' salary for 3 years, 5 years, and at the end of it, the state governments have not made any provision. And then after this, this is not a good practice. When you get the support, you also need to think of sustaining it. It's important that the relief commissioners also work for sustaining this kind of a support. You cannot just be dependent upon the central resources for everything.
And one question, Dr. Vatsa, in this context, whether a state can ask for national disaster mitigation for additional mitigation activities.
Of course. The guidelines make it very clear.
So the state government who are preparing, they will have over and above also that if X is the mitigation fund allocated, they can also
both NDRF and NDMF, they are all supplementary funds. They reinforce the state government. They do not stand on their own. They have to be spent for supporting the states.
So I would request Arunachal Pradesh, because Arunachal Pradesh has raised this issue. Can you come up and clarify your doubts with Dr. Vatsa? You have written this question in the chat box, and you have written that we do not have anything at Arunachal Pradesh at this moment. So can you ask this question to the floor? Shipra, can you see that Arunachal Pradesh participant?
Sir, we have...
Okay, if another question you have, you please go ahead.
Sir, we have a question from Puducherry.
Yeah, read it out.
The question is whether this mitigation fund is applicable for union territories, because they have not received any letters.
It is not. Union territories have a separate allocation. So the Finance Commission recommendations are not applicable to the union territories.
So it's very clear to the states who comes under the UT, they have their separate allocation. This does not mean that they are left out, but they have separate budgetary provisions. In a UT, and not in this 15th Finance Commission recommend. They have a separate window, not from this one.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions, Shipra, you see?
Yes, sir. We have many more questions. So the question is, can the fund money be used in a convergence project wherein the cost is going up to integrate DRR features, and hence the gap funding can be done from the fund of the for the project? They're saying that can we fill in the gap?
So meaning thereby the question is like this, that if they are taking an initiative for mitigation and on the route they are following it, there's a shortage of funding, and if it is entering into the climate area or environment area, so can this be extended, if I have understood the question properly? They have to define, I think, in the project scope.
No, I think they can always ask for supplementary resources from the NDMF, provided it is consistent with the guidelines.
Okay. So the provision is there. You can always request for additional funding from the DMA, provided that you also be very clear in terms of the project document. That
you cannot just prepare a project document and send it to the Government of India. You have to say, what are you committing to that? You know, how much are you committing to that? And then you say, okay, this is what we are doing for through our own SDMF. This is where the shortfall is, you know, and then the NDMF can step in and provide further resources.
Next question, Sipra. Yeah, somebody.
Sir, someone from Sikkim is asking to speak.
Yeah, please allow him. Give the floor.
Jigme Bhutia, sir, can you speak, sir?
Sir, good morning, sir. Oh, so sorry, sir. Good afternoon, sir. So this is Deputy Director from Sikkim, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Shipra, can you check the connection?
Sir, you're audible, sir. Bhutia, sir.
Or in the meanwhile, take another question. When once the connection is restored, give him the floor.
Yes, sir. So there is another question that are we going to have specific technical guidelines for catalytic assistance for drought?
For
drought.
So see, drought, there is an earmarked allocation of 100 crores to certain states. I think it is to about 12 states.
12 states, yes.
Yeah, this is a catalytic assistance for drought planning, actually. So not really the drought mitigation measures, because it's a small amount of money. Drought mitigation measures are very, very expensive. There are very specific programs, dedicated programs for drought mitigation. You have integrated wasteland development program. You have integrated watershed development program. So these are the huge flagship programs with enormous resources for drought mitigation. What is missing is that we do not have enough drought planning, you know, that how these schemes need to be applied at the community level, how we need to monitor them, how we need to bring in a few more things, you know, which can improve the drought mitigation. So the earmarked allocation of 100 crore for each for 12 states is meant to be a bridge assistance so that we can improve our drought planning.
I will have one question for the better clarification of the participant, Dr. Vatsa. Especially in this context, 100 crores allocation to each state. Drought, when they are putting up a proposal, any state, and that is a proposal when they are developing, it might land up in agriculture sector or watershed sector or in the rural development sector. There is chances of getting parallel overlap or something like that. How they will make a distinction that X would...
No, that is the idea, that agriculture sector, water sector, you know, soil conservation sector, all these things need to be brought together. And that is how we need to improve the drought mitigation. So idea is that the schemes which exist in different sectors, they need to be brought together. We need to have a more intersectoral approach. Right now, all the departments, they follow their own schemes. But how do we bring together the scheme? For this, this allocation can be used.
Say, for example, again, they are doing some watershed management. So whether watershed would be funded from here or it should be go from the rural development?
Watershed should be funded through the watershed integrated watershed program. But when you are implementing a watershed program, there are many more additional things that you need to do. You know how you are monitoring at the community level, how you are also maybe you have a small literacy program, a water literacy program. You want to add value through some savings program. So all those things through which the community's access to natural resources can be improved can be supported through this. So this is not so much about the principal intervention per se. It is for enabling interventions.
So if any project is conceived in the state for drought mitigation on these 12 states,
yes,
they should be integrated project. And if over and above they're still falling short of money, this 100 crores can be utilized.
Yes.
So any state has this
So drought mitigation is basically, we spend money, a lot of money on water measures, water conservation measures.
Right.
Communities are generally left out. This is really the experience.
So
how do we bring the communities together? How do we bring the women into this whole program? Because women are very much at the receiving end of the droughts. They travel long distances. Now, all these things, how do we improve the women's access to water? That could very well be supported through this. So this is more about those bridges, those linkages, rather than otherwise, 100 crores is nothing for drought mitigation is such a huge undertaking,
Right. So I hope that those states, 12 states who are attending this program, they got the clarification that how that 100 crores allocated to the drought prone states, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, and Uttar Pradesh, how they would go about it. So,
we are little slow on drought issue, but we will be convening a workshop on this issue soon. So we will have more explanation how to go about it.
Thank you. And what about a similar thing would apply for landslide and the hill states? All the northeastern states, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, they have been allocated additional funding as a allocation for managing.
So we have developed the national program on landslide. So all these resources are being taken care of. We are also developing a national program on the earthquakes. We have actually shared these programs with the states. So and there is a considerable allocation to all the states under these national programs, which go beyond the recommendations of the Finance Commission.
So Shipra, we can take one or two last question.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Vatsa, and then we will close. If any other questions we have, other
Sir,
questions.
in the continuation of the question by Puducherry, they have asked that we usually get central share and we provide our corresponding state share. Is there any special release for mitigation purpose separately?
No, I don't think so. It's only what you get through the state share and what you apply to the central government. There is no other mechanism.
Any other question, Shipra?
And the last question is, sir, is the long restoration, recovery, reconstruction introduced for the
It's a
first
new
time?
thing. It's the first time we are doing it.
Yes, sir. So introduced for the first time as don't have these in Arunachal Pradesh.
Yeah, we will definitely, we are doing it. Arunachal Pradesh is a union territory. So maybe it will have to ask for separate allocations for recovery and reconstruction.
Sir, I have a small question for Meghalaya, please.
Yeah, please.
Just want to know where can I get a copy of this national program on landslide and national program on earthquake?
It is shared with your SDMA. Please check. It's definitely
State
there.
Disaster Authority.
If you send me your email, I will send it to you.
Absolutely, sir. I'll put it on the chat box.
Okay. Thank you.
And somebody was asking question from Arunachal. If we close before that, you must get the opportunity because you tried and.
Yes, sir. Sir, Jigme Bhutia sir is there. He wants to speak.
Please allow him to ask.
Sir, please unmute yourself. Jigme Bhutia sir.
We are not able to listen to him. I don't know Dr. Vatsa is able to listen to him or not.
Sir,
No, I can't hear.
Shipra, you can take his question because we have not been able to listen to him. So some technical snag must be. So I think we have cleared many doubts and also we have given clear-cut kind of understanding that how that all these new funding on the mitigation and the relief fund and other things which have been planned in the 15th Finance Commission. Before we go for closing, I would like to just request Dr. Vatsa to give any last kind of a points from him and to all the participants. He has listened to all the questions, clarifications and clarified doubts. So if you have to say anything as a closing remark, Dr. Vatsa.
Yeah, as I mentioned right in the beginning, we are setting up a new system, and this is a period of transition. Let's be little. Let's work together. Let's collaborate and let's reinforce each other. There are some glitches that we are trying to address, and I'm sure that with little more work and during the course of the year, we will have a much stronger system, a much stronger understanding of the processes involved, and we need to develop more and more projects. So as disaster management is changing its course, it's becoming it is acquiring a strong program orientation, and you should also redirect your department, your SDMA, to become more program oriented. So this is all that I have to say by way of conclusion. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed interacting with you.
Dr. Vatsa, I'm just getting a Rajasthan query. Dr. Mr. Vijendra, can you speak on? I have put in you the mic. Yeah. Please go ahead. You just asked question, Dr. I'm put. Yeah, please. I think if you can. Yeah, Shipra, you can unmute Mr. Vijendra Kumar from Rajasthan.
Sure, sir.
One query has come from Rajasthan. So Dr. Vatsa, just last question. He has called and he's attending. Vijendra, are you there?
Sir, I'm unmuting him.
Unmute. Vijendra, are you online? The question he's asking most likely is regarding that can NDMA or that guidelines which are being issued can also list out that the work which are permissible and which are not permissible under this.
Absolutely. All for the mitigation, all the works that need to be that are for different hazards, they are listed, and only those activities can be undertaken and supported. So all the mitigation activities are very well listed, and not just that, we will be following up and issuing hazard-wise mitigation major guidelines also. It will take a little more time, but we will do that.
So I hope, Mr. Vijendra, you have got the answer. I raised this question to Dr. Vatsa. I raise your question to Dr. Vatsa and hope you have listened to it.
Sir, he can unmute himself also because I have made him
You can unmute
panelist.
yourself also. Okay, so
Thank you. Thank you.
So Dr. Vatsa, thank you very much for being with us, and it was a very, very fruitful this webinar which we had. Most of the state governments, they have attended. We will send you the list also to you so that you can will have an idea who all have attended and the kind of queries. And when we further we are developing the guidelines or anything, this will work as an input. And you have clarified most of the doubts. So I'm grateful on behalf of NIDM and the team. I extend my heartfelt thanks to you for being with us, clarifying doubts with the participants. And I'm also expressing my gratitude to all the participants and the state governments who nominated you to attend this program. And I hope that it must have been very useful and insightful, and it will take to the logical end. So the kind of initiatives which have been taken by the Government of India for allocation, working on new models of funding, that would actually help the state governments in risk mitigation, recovery, long-term recovery, reconstruction, mitigation, capacity building, and so on and so forth. So once again, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you, Dr. Vatsa, especially to you, and my team, Shipra, Ali, and all those who are associated with. And I'm grateful to you, NDMA, Dr. Vatsa, in especially, to all the state government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Shipra.
Sir, Jigme Bhutia sir was not able to speak, but he has written down his question if I'm allowed to
If
ask that.
with the permission of the chair, Dr. Vatsa, if you...
Please go ahead.
Okay.
So he wants to know that if the national level program on landslide can be converged with the urban flood, since capital city in mountain state have been facing losses owing to both landslides and urban floodings.
See, no, this is an earmarked allocation. So landslide is a separate program. And if we have to develop a program for floods, it has to be developed separately. We should not mix that. If we mix that, there will be several implications. So let's keep these two programs distinct and different.
So
Thank you so much.
I hope, Shipra, no more questions. Now we can close it and we can request all the participants to leave, and also to Dr. Vatsa, because it's already, we have crossed 15 minutes of time. So thank you very much, Dr. Vatsa.
Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, and it's really good. We should talk more often. We should discuss these issues more often. I'm sure it will contribute to a strengthening of the new system. Thank you. Thank you very much. All the best.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear participants, all the officials from different state government. Thank you very much. So we are closing this webinar now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.